Hi everyone. So I have invested in a tripod, which I have balanced on quite precariously on the top of my laundry basket, on top of a chair, and so you can kind of see that my backdrop is a little bit shit, but it's a I don't know. I hoped it would look better, but now that I'm seeing everything in the viewfinder, I'm like, oh, I gotta try and rig up something better than this. Anyway, I wanted to talk to you all today about Canadian politics because I've got on this YouTube spiral of watching, auditing America and then auditing Canada, which is hilarious, especially when compared with auditing America. And then Trevor Noah videos. And the trouble with American politics is that currently, you know, a reality star has been elected, and I'm addicted to watching this guy talk because it's like watching an amazing cheese doodle run a country, and it's way more entertaining than like other politicians, especially if I compare with Canadian politicians. Like I have to admit, the TV junkie in me enjoys watching Trump and the things that he says and his, um, you know, gesticulations. But then I got into my head that I should investigate some Canadian politics, and my aunt is always sending me stuff about Canada, and one of the issues that Canada has a pretty good record, and so you might be tempted to think that they're really liberal and human rights activists, that they have good policies on healthcare, and whenever people go to Canada from the States, if they're people of color, they often comment on how unthreatening the general atmosphere is in regards to race, and they don't feel like they're being watched with suspicion or anything like that. I don't know if that's all across the board, but I know that at least some YouTubers I watch have commented on that. Anyway, but I received an article which was about the enforced sterilization of indigenous women, First Nations, and maybe Inuit also. I think that First Nations just refers to the tribes that we used to call Indians, and now we say First Nations for those. And I think otherwise, if you're talking about including Inuit people, then you say Indigenous or Aboriginal. Anyway, sidetracking. So supposedly, my aunt's friend sent me this article, and I was really angry when I read it because I kind of, there's this whole thing in the news about Canada chastising Saudi Arabia about human rights, but I'm not sure if this article was fake news, if it was real news, because I'm going to post it down below, and maybe some of my viewers, if I have any, can tell me. But it made me really angry to think that, because Canadians can be really on their high horse about moral issues and human rights issues, and I just think that if Canadians have no actual business being in Canada without First Nations people. We should really be honoring them every day, at least in our thoughts, because we kind of landed on their shores, and our ancestors. I'm not talking obviously not us personally. You don't choose where you're born, but I think that there is a debt that you owe to people if your ancestors have oppressed them and they're still living the effects of that oppression. So this made me really angry and it especially made me angry because the article really doesn't give you much information, and then they tell you sort of not to ask. Like it says, if you're looking for a reason for why this happened, it's systemic racism, which is a statement that annoys me because it's like saying that the murderer commits murder because he's a murderer, or because he's deeply disturbed or something, and like that's a cause, but it's not really a reason. Like when you look at someone like Hitler, you know, he was a terrible person and he committed all these atrocities, and Pol Pot, you know, famous leaders who did terrible things, and they were insane, and you could, but they weren't just insane, you know, like they had these half-cocked notions that they had agendas that they were trying to push, and I don't get with these healthcare professionals in Canada what their agenda even was. Like it doesn't, to me, it's not enough to say that they were scared of Indigenous people. Why? Like, first of all, there's hardly any left. I mean, the percentage of Indigenous people in Canada is very small. You know, we don't have an overpopulation problem. We're obviously not, you know, racist all across the board, because Canada has embraced many Syrian refugees. So why are we phobic about Indigenous people? Is it like some kind of mutant form of guilt? Or what is it, really? And I feel like the people that did this enforced sterilization, it's not just that I want them to apologize. I actually want to know what they were thinking. Like, what were you trying to achieve? And because I think that in order to solve problems, you kind of have to get to the root of the cause. You can't just say, you know, bad and slap kids on the wrist. You have to explain the reason that I'm slapping you on the wrist is because you're putting your hand in the candle and I don't want it to get burned. Like, understanding is a huge part of correcting your behavior, I think. Like, you kind of, you have to know why things happen. And so in order to prevent bad things from happening, I feel like we have to understand how they occur, first of all, and then work toward what steps are going to be taken to prevent it in the future. But without really knowing how it occurred and why it occurred, it could just crop up again anywhere, because the whole cause is hidden then. So that's my bugaboo about that. And I have to put a disclaimer in this. Mayan sent me this article. I don't know what kind of news it was. I posted this question on Quora, and I got a lot of strong reactions from Canadians and Canadian healthcare professionals who said that I was posting a fake story, which is possible because I'm not well enough read, or I have not researched all the newspapers, and I don't know, you know, which ones have the reputation of being corrupt or whatever. But I know this one healthcare professional from Canada said that she had heard that had happened like 20 years ago, and that she didn't think this was happening now. But the article that I was sent was claiming that this was a recent thing anyway. And also that it was a lot of people. It wasn't just like one isolated incident. It was a lot of healthcare professionals that had tried to do this in different parts of Canada. So then, like, systemic racism doesn't really cut it for me, because I want to know, like, how are you reconciling that with the Hippocratic Oath? Like, you're supposed to preserve life. So how is enforced sterilization in harmony with that? Like, think about it. And if many people are doing it, that suggests to me some kind of conspiracy, or something that they have agreed upon, which means that they have some kind of aim in mind. It's not just some phobia, you know? So I'm posting this video hoping to spark a little bit more of a discussion about this, because I don't really understand the problem. It seems like, are Canadians afraid that, these healthcare professionals, were they afraid that if we let Indigenous people multiply too much, we're all going to have to learn to speak Iroquois, and that would be horrible? Why? Like, I don't get it. Please explain it to me. It's really, really confusing. And then again, maybe one of you can tell me, you know, if this news story was just like a farce, basically, a fallacy, not a farce, a fallacy. Something that was fake that everyone thought was true for a while and it's not. So yeah, and that's all I wanted to say about that. I'm going to make another video, and but I was all fired up about this topic, and I don't even know what I look like. I've just been rambling madly, but for me, I felt like this topic was really important, and I feel like lately I've been investigating a lot of First Nations beliefs and kind of looking especially for music that is not rap music, because I feel like it's connected to paganism, and I feel like it's connected, it's kind of an integral part of the kind of paganism that I want to study about. So that's another reason that I don't want to see Indigenous people wiped out, obviously, because they have a lot of knowledge, and also the people. Duh. Anyway, so I will leave this video there, and yes. So hopefully some of you can comment and tell me a little bit more about this story, if any of you have heard it in Canada, and whether you think that this story is reliable or not. I will post a link to the article below the video. Bye.